Good evening, friends. Again, I'm going to speak to you for a short duration, say 5-10 minutes, on the corporate social responsibility new amendments. The reason is that tomorrow is 31st March 2021, and everybody must be aware that under the CSR provisions, a company is supposed to spend not less than 2% of its average net profits during the immediately preceding 3 financial years. The 3 financial years for the purpose of this financial year, which is going to end tomorrow, that is 2021, will be the 19-20, 18-19 and 17-18. And by any measure, the 3 financial years average net profits for, let us say, ending up to 19-20 would have already been determined by the company at the end of the financial years 19-20s approval of the audited financial statements. So in some companies, the audited financial statements were approved in spite of Corona during 2021, probably on time. I know of companies which have done it in May itself, but there are companies which have struggled. There have been several problems, even though they were profit-making companies. But the industry in which they were operating probably was not working well during the Corona. And therefore, there are a lot of companies, thousands of companies, which have closed their financial year only on 31st December 2021. And if you look at 3 immediately preceding financial years, the third one would be the 19-20 for the financial year 2021 to calculate that average net profit. And suppose the company has had approved the financial statements, of course profit-making companies of 19-20. These Corona problems would have definitely haunted the company only in 2021. So therefore, by 31st December AGM, 30th November is the date on which they have finalized the financial statements and they have arrived at the average net profits. They would have had hardly the last 4 months for spending the money, and they will never be able to really spend if they were having some apprehensions about the spell of Corona, because now we are discussing about second wave, and it's quite possible that the company would not want to spend despite having average net profits, because it has to conserve the money for its own purposes. And even then, if profit making is there and it wants to spend also, it would have had very less time probably for 30th November. So you can have now December, January, February and March, 4 months. And therefore it assumes significance 31st March 2021 is tomorrow. And the new provision says if there is unspent amount and if it is not relatable to, let us say, an ongoing project, in that case, the unspent amount must be transferred to a fund specified in Schedule VII within 6 months. But the other one is if it is unspent and if it is relating to ongoing project. For example, somebody would have started the project in 19-20 and it would have been continuing a big project 2 years, 3 years. In such a case, the unspent amount which is relatable to the ongoing project must be transferred to a special account opened by the company and in a bank of its own choice, and the transfer must be done within 30 days, and thereafter the money can be drawn from that account and you can continue to spend. So unspent amount relating to ongoing project must be transferred within 30 days from the end of the financial year, which means 1st April. The language says any amount unspent which is remaining and attributable to connected to ongoing project shall be transferred to a special account within 30 days from the end of the financial year, which means 31st March is the commencement date for the 30 days. So in my opinion, if the language were to be literally given meaning, then you have 31st March as the first day of the 30 days specified here, and it may be 29th April by which you should be able to identify the unspent amount. Of course, you can count up to 31st March, or even after that, if you have spent it, if you continue to spend it on a daily basis, doesn't mean that 31st March should be the unspent amount, though the language is slightly indicating that, and therefore 30 days From the date of closure of the financial year, that is tomorrow, 29th April, you must transfer the unspent amount relatable to ongoing project. Therefore, you would like to know what is ongoing project. Definitely, there is a meaning. 22nd January 2021, the CSR policy rules were amended, and there is a definition of ongoing project. Ongoing project is a multi-year project, which means it is not a single year, it is more than a year, undertaken by the company in fulfillment of CSR obligations and having timelines not exceeding 3 years, which means it's indirectly putting an embargo on a company which undertakes a CSR project for a long duration, more than 3 years, and excluding the financial year in which it was commenced. For example, if some project has been commenced, let us say in December or January, February, March only, that year is not counted. So you will start counting from 21, 22, 22, 23 and 22, 23, 24. Therefore, the 3 years for ongoing project can be not this year, it could be the first year, next one is 21, 22 and so on. And it should include the project which is not initially approved as a multi-year project, but you can say over as it goes, the company found that it is going to take much time and much larger thing is required. Therefore, ongoing project is a multi-year project is the one thing which we must remember. And therefore, somebody was asking me whether tomorrow we can approve a CSR budget for an ongoing project. Literally speaking, yes, it is possible. You can identify a project and earmark some of the amount to be spent within this financial year and categorize it as an ongoing project. So for let us say there are some characteristic features like multi-year. The project is identified. You are able to say, this is the project I'm going to do, this is the agency I'm going to deploy, or I'm going to do it directly, and the project size is this much, value is this much, duration is this much, these are all the timelines, this is how it is going to be implemented. It will take some time. Apart from this year, next year, it could be 2 years and the maximum 3 years. And therefore, if tomorrow we are able to identify, yes, this is the amount earmarked for this project, it is possible. But all these things must be records. For example, if I'm going to construct a hospital, it is going to take about 24 months. You can't say on 31st March, I just want to say the hospital with 100 beds will be. You must have a lot of information for that, the project report, the size, the contract, the DPR and whatnot, and the location, land, etc. A lot of things are there in that. So just like that, you can't simply resolve, say that this project about 10 crores is going to be spent on construction of a hospital building for the poor and needy. No, it could not be so easily taken and so lightly taken. And therefore, ongoing project is something which is defined. In fact, practically speaking, 2021, with a few months or with a substantial number of, the months and days have gone in Corona, fighting the Corona and coming back to normalcy, again seeing that there is likely to hold of hitting by the next wave of Corona. I think this 2021 is a year that has almost, been a year that is to be forgotten. I don't know how the government is going to introduce how this government is introducing such a provision and saying that 31st March, hey, within 30 days you transfer it. Nevertheless, this is the rule of law, and let us see whether it is possible for us to see on 31st March how much of the amount to be spent on CSR can be related to ongoing projects. And if you carefully notice, in relation to ongoing projects, there are other things also. In the case of ongoing project, the rules say the board of directors shall monitor the implementation of the project with reference to the approved timelines, year-wise allocation, and shall be competent to make modifications, and smooth implementation must be ensured. And in addition, there is one more thing I saw. There was some, the information to be furnished in the annual report, and there are 2 sections on ongoing projects. These sections clearly say what is the location of the project, what is the duration of the project, how much is spent this year, how much is going to be spent next year. And there is also another, paragraph which talks about the financial year in which the money is spent, and it talks about project ID. Again, one more ID is going to be added here as per the rules. the ongoing project, you have to mention a project ID. Probably the companies must come out with some identification, and we do not know whether the government is going to introduce another registration requirements and all. Okay, just I wanted to say that be aware of this. These are all the rules, and you must take care of the requirements. And remember, ongoing project classification is not that easy. There are certain characteristic features in order to be regarded as ongoing project. Remember that. Do it carefully. Do not enter into problems. If there is an unspent amount, I suggest on 31st March being tomorrow, you just transfer it to a fund specified in Schedule 7, and being election year, election period, you can't end it without any politics. Therefore, I just want to add a tinge of politics to this small video. The rules say, there are a lot in the 22nd January 2021 amendment. There is a rule number 10 which says transfer of unspent CSR amount until a fund is specified in Schedule 7 for the purposes of Section 5 and 6 of 135. Now, it's only for the ongoing project. Unspent amount has to be transferred to the account that the company opens. In the case of unspent amount not relatable to ongoing project, it has to go to a fund. That is what we discussed. Now, here it is saying until a fund is specified in Schedule 7, the unspent CSR amount shall be transferred by the company to any fund included in Schedule 7. Go to Schedule 7, you will find 4 funds are there. The fund number 1 is what is known as the Swachh Bharat Kosh. The fund number 2 is what is known as the Clean Ganga Fund. And the fund number 3 is the Prime Minister's National Relief Fund, which is well known. And the fund number 4 is also well known, that is PM CARES Fund. So therefore, these are all the 4 funds. And my dear friends, I just want to add this politics here to say that this section, which is connected to the transfer of fund, subsection 6, 135, it says shall transfer the same to a fund specified in Schedule 7, which means the law, the parliament, the lawmakers, the legislature has said it shall be transferred to a fund specified in Schedule 7, and Schedule 7 specifies 4 funds. Therefore, the plain meaning of subsection 6 is to transfer to any of those 4 funds. But rule number 10 says until a fund is specified. I do not know from where are we drawing this power to say out of the 4, spend it here. That's it. My politics is over. Thank you.